imagination, the awakening. And the awakening is what is inside of each one of us. And that's what it is. It's a personal experience of what we're going through, the ideas that we want to put into the flesh, not just in keep them in our head. And today I am joined with my host, Tracy Borson from TLB Coaching and Events. And Tracy's going to be sharing, we're going to be communicating back and forth about kind of a second part of our podcast last week about getting out of the comfort zone. And today, Tracy's going to really explore with us all the idea about getting out of our comfort zone in marketing. So I am all ears for that. And so I'm trying something different, just as a preface. Got the headphones on. We're trying something different because we knew that there was some sound issues and working through the bugs. And this is the idea of getting out of your comfort zone, doing something that you don't know what the hell you're doing, okay, and just doing it and having fun with it. So now that I've put that out there, let's enjoy what is about to be experienced. Welcome, Tracy.
Oh, thank you, Stanley. And I think this is, I always feel like what we experience is just a perfect setting for the shows because, for those of you who are hopefully hearing me very clearly this week, how Stanley is hearing me is that we're in an echoey room. So we have some mystery tech. So for one, if that sounds familiar to you and you know how to fix that, please reach out to us because we would love to hear. But this is part of being uncomfortable in order to
Yeah.
figure out what is going to work best. And we introduced that last week in the conversation about comfort zones. And one of the things that just really resonated with me was this concept of the two kind of pieces of the puzzle when it comes to marketing and comfort zones is that when we've been in business for a while, we have these things that we do. Maybe it's trade shows, maybe it's direct mail, maybe it's TV advertising. We have these things that we do and we do them because we do them. I actually had a VP once, I asked, I'm like, why do we do so many flyers? And he's like, because we have to. And I was like, do we? There's not a lot of data that says that these are productive, and there are a lot of trees that we kill to send out all these flyers. They still send out a lot of flyers. I get them in my mail, and then I put them into my recycle bin. So there's that. But then on the flip side, there's also in this beginning of the marketing journey, we have comfort zones as humans. And if you're starting a new business or you're an entrepreneur, a lot of times what happens is you get this influx of information about what you should do in marketing. You should do this, you should have a podcast, you should have this, you should have an email list, blah, blah. And instead of paying attention to what makes sense for you, we 2-foot jump into the discomfort zone, but without that understanding of this is pushing us in a specific direction outside of our comfort zone. So we're out of it, but we're not actually going. I'm trying to think of I wrote it down, something that we said in the last show. The greatest expression of who you are is outside of your comfort zone. And that is true, but not all expressions are all authentic. And so there's also this balance of being able to figure out, okay, in what direction do I want to jump? Or in what direction do I want to dip my toe based on who I am and where I'm going instead of what an external resource has said to me that I should do. So I think there's a lot of different things we could talk about today. Is there a specific place that you think it would be valuable to start, Stanley?
Yeah, and one of the things that that comes to my mind as you're talking about that is the idea of introvert or extrovert. Which one's better? There's not a better. Okay, there is you, and you are the better. That's just it.
This is a great place to start specifically for marketing, because I think a lot of people associate marketing with being extroverted. So you are now putting yourself out into the world, aka being an extrovert, which isn't necessarily true, but I think a lot of people think that. And so then we start to get these trains of thought that are convincing us we have to show up extroverted in order to show up. And it's just not True, and it's also not sustainable, not effective for people who are naturally introverted to try and reconstruct their way of being and way of doing business into something that doesn't fit them. It would be like wearing a pair of pants that are 3 sizes too big for you. Like it doesn't fit. It's not going to fit. How much do you have to change in order to make that fit? And then is that a good change? If I have to put on enough weight to wear a pair of pants that are 3 sizes too big, was that a good change for me?
Right.
And I mean, in that scenario, I would think that most people are probably like, no, that's not a healthy decision for me. And so when we create those kinds of similarities and then look at our thoughts and say, wow, I'm really putting myself out there, and like that might be considered as something I have to do, but do I have to do it that way? How could I, or how would I love the curiosity component here. How would I, or how could I show up being myself and build relationships with people and show people what my business is here to do? Or even if you're in like a larger organization, how might you make your mark on a department or in a role that you're trying? How would you do that? You would have a different way of doing that than a different marketing coordinator or a different video editor or a different coach. You have your unique way. And people, this is something that I always find very interesting too, because a lot of the people who are attracted to me from a service provider or thought leader perspective are attracted because I have enthusiasm and energy, and that attracts them. And then what happens in our brain is we're like, we have to be like that. So Tracy attracted me. So in order for me to attract people, I have to be like that. And the thing about it is, people are attracted to what they need. And I am actually specifically attracted to people who have a grounding energy that allows me to feel like I am balanced because I have bubbly energy. That's naturally me. But in order for me to be productive, in order for me to grow, in order for me to get pushed out of my comfort zone, I don't need to stay in enthusiastic bubbly mode. I need to feel grounded. I need to get stretched in different areas where I don't have the muscle flexibility. And so I am attracted to people who have this very like calm, cool zen. My coach is like very woo. I am not woo. I've always been attracted to the coaches who are more woo. My background is in business, corporate structure, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a balance for me. And so we spend so much time being not ourselves, which can technically be interpreted as being outside your comfort zone. But that's not the, if we looked at ourselves as like a circle in the middle and there's this bigger circle around the outside, there's a directionality that happens outside of that circle in the direction we're trying to go or the direction we're trying to grow. There's also a bunch of the rest of the circle that is being outside our comfort zone that's not going to take us to where we're going. And so in this conversation, specifically from a marketing perspective, I want to focus on that like V that's going in the direction we want to go. It's not a straight line. No, it's a area that you can meander within, but it's not the entire circle. And the skill lies in being able to identify, when am I outside my comfort zone in the direction that I'm going, and when am I outside of my comfort zone in not the direction that I'm going. And yes, let's be outside our comfort zone, but let's do it meaningfully.
Yeah, and just to preface this, this isn't just about business marketing.
No.
It encapsulates business marketing, but we are marketing every day. We're marketing with ourselves. We're marketing the way that the first thoughts that come into our mind. There are days when I'll wake up and I'm thinking about all the things that I didn't get done yesterday or the day before, and now I'm taking those 70,000 thoughts and I'm thinking 90% of the same things. And so I'm not being able to create. And when I do that, I'm marketing what my day is going to look like.
Mm.
I'm marketing my outcome. And so if I say that I do things the same way that I did yesterday in business, if we do that, we fall behind and we pay the price. And then there's a downsizing.
Mhm.
And just recently, a very close relationship that I have, their company had a meeting and they downsized, I think, 5% of the company. And that was substantial. At the beginning of the year, I have another partner, and they were all called to a meeting, a 10-minute meeting, and they laid off 2,400 people on a Zoom call.
What? Okay, well, there's other things to be said about that.
So when you understand the marketing that's happening, is why did that have to happen? Because we're thinking that we got to do things the same way that we've always done, or we've got to duplicate what we think is the craze that's coming out there.
Mhm.
And this is the confusion, and in my own world, I'll just be completely transparent, because that's what I believe, that's where the imagination is allowed, is given that permission to be expressed, is that when you see all these marketing tactics, and I say tactics, um, then you start to guess what you're doing. You start to
Mhm.
question yourself. Should I do this because that's what this person says, and should I do that? And then we get to go in 50 different directions, and it's frustrating because we're trying to wear somebody else's clothes or somebody else's outfit, and it's not fitted for us. So,
Yeah.
you know, that that's a conversation in itself, not wearing your own armor and somebody else wanting to put armor on you that does not fit.
I mean, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, so now I'm thinking of Gimli wearing like the people-sized armor, and it doesn't fit him, right? He's not going to be the most effective warrior if your armor doesn't fit. And
Exactly.
it's when we look at this from, and I totally agree with you, Stanley, that marketing exists all the time. Whether we are marketing an outcome for our day for ourselves, we're marketing ourselves as a potential spouse to somebody, right? We're marketing ourselves as a good parent. There's lots of. I think a lot of times it's interesting for me as a marketing coach to hear people's definitions of marketing, because
Right.
they're almost always, I mean, they're understandable, but they're not complete by any means. And people think that marketing is digital advertising. Well, that's not true. There's a whole bunch of other things out there that can be considered marketing. But what are the things that you consider marketing? And also, what's the value of calling it marketing or not calling it marketing? One of the things that I also work with my clients on quite often is changing the concept from marketing to conversation. I'm not out there marketing myself. I'm having conversations with people. I'm just having conversations. Social media post, conversation, right? Conversation starter. It's like I go into a room and ask someone a question. It's a conversation starter. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Meh. Sometimes we I had this example. So I hosted an in-person networking event on Tuesday, and I have like prompt questions for the stations, and one of them was BEST friend. What do the letters BEST stand for in your interpretation of a best friend? And it was so interesting to hear people, because to begin with, everyone was like, huh, it wasn't like one of those questions where people could immediately have an answer, right? Like, this is something we need to think about. So then you start brainstorming. We talked about trust for T and supportiveness for S, and like T and S seem to come like pretty easily. And then B, everyone was like, well, bossy? No, we don't want a bossy best friend. Like, kind of work through things. And then someone said, hide the body. And I was like, I mean, it's not wrong. You probably want your best friend to help you hide the body in case that was ever a thing. But it was just one of those moments where you're like, wow, now I have something I am going to remember that person by forever. And
Right.
it's a good thing, it's a funny thing, and it's marketing, right? It's marketing. And it was just like something that came up in conversation that's funny. And so when we think too structured around what is marketing, and sure, you need some kind of structure in order to get things done. But if we start off by having too much structure, that is like by nature keeping you in your comfort zone. So we're saying we need this structure, and the structure exists based on how structure has always existed for us. And so we keep it in this little zone, and all the good, fun, interesting stuff is outside of that.
Hmm.
So there are opportunities to break down those barriers, but also the opportunity to break down the barrier is unique to you. Something that might feel really easy for me to do might not feel really easy for Stanley to do. And something that's really easy for Stanley to do isn't. I remember Stanley telling me about his interactions in the grocery store parking lot. And I was just like, I would never do that. Not because I'm not friendly, not because I'm not helpful, but that is a type of experience that feels uncomfortable for me. So I wouldn't default to that. And if someone told me in order to build my business, I had to go to the grocery store parking lot and talk to people in the parking lot, I'd be like, well, then I'm not building a business because that just
Right.
feels totally uncomfortable. And so but that isn't actually the only way to build a business. Now, quite honestly, it could be a way to build a business. You could be the helpful grocery guy. Who knows? Right? There are lots of opportunities, but when you tap into those things that you naturally do because you're who you are and you just show up that way, then we like open that door to that green triangle that says, okay, this is the thing that breaks down the space between the comfort zone and the growth zone. So now I can get there more easily, and then therefore I can get to my destination a lot more easily.
So, do you recommend any one pattern, or what goes into the way that you help guide?
So I don't like to recommend one tactical pattern because whether someone chooses digital ads or a LinkedIn Live or a podcast or a book or what have you is mostly irrelevant. You have to pick something. At the end of the day, no one is going to know who you are if you don't have some way to show people who you are. But it could be an Instagram account, right? Like it doesn't have to be huge and complex. You do need one way. But the one way is dictated by a couple of different things. So, first of all, is your brand. Who are you? Who are you, and why do you do what you do?
Hmm.
So, again, whether we're talking about this from an entrepreneurial perspective and you're building a business, we're talking about this from an employee perspective and you're trying to like, own your role in this department, or you're trying to implement something in your community or a like big societal change, right? You're trying to make an impact on climate change. Like people have to know why you're doing that, which means you need to know why you're doing that.
Right.
And my why is not necessarily the same as someone else's why. I might have, so I personally have this, I grew up in a family of girls and I have a son. And so I have this interesting perspective of what it's like to grow up as a girl. And then also, like, so the downside slash limitations of that. But now, equally, I'm seeing downside limitations of kind of the male narrative for him, which I was never a party to when I was growing up. And so this is one of the things where I like, there's a lot of people I know who like focus on female entrepreneurs or focus on male, and that's fine for them because they have a reason to do that. I don't have a reason to do that because my experience is that there are limitations placed on all of us and our genius is beyond the limitations. So I serve men and women in different countries, in different age groups, in different cultures. It's like irrelevant to me. That might not be true for someone else because you might have a reason that you've picked that, but make sure you have a good reason because from a marketing targeting perspective, a lot of people want to talk about demographic targeting for clients, right? Age groups and household incomes and these types of things, which are easy to understand data wise. But if they're not connected to who you are and why you are doing what you're doing, then it's mostly going to be irrelevant to you down the line. And you're going to get to tactics and you're going to have a whole bunch of things that you've picked on a base of sand that can just crumble at any time. So that clarity is super important. And it doesn't have to be 100% unique. So again, my example, I focus on authenticity. Authenticity is the thing I think is the secret to making everybody be the best version of themselves. Now, everybody has different limitations to accessing their authenticity. And so that's the customization part of the program. But this is about authenticity. And the reason it is because in my personal experience, when I was feeling disempowered, the words that went through my head were, I'm being my authentic self 5% of the time. This was my self-narrative. This is why authenticity is important to me, not because someone told me authenticity is supposed to be important, but because my internal experiences dictated that word. And so these are the types of things I mean when we're looking at real brand clarity. Not that you have an offer, not that you've decided to get a life coach certification and now you're a certified life coach, right? You have a title as marketing manager, right? Like, these are the things that create the clarity, except they're not. There's levels deep that you need to go to figure out what that clarity actually is. So you can go to market and say like, okay, well, if people don't get that, I'll explain it to them because I understand it. Once you understand it, you can help other people to understand it. So once you have the clarity, then there's also connection. So if you think about this from a marketing perspective, the best brands that you have a relationship with, you have a connection to. You feel connected to them. Now, everybody connects with brands and people on different values, different levels, based on different experiences. And so again, it's not about saying I have to create connections following this specific procedure. Like, that will work for some people and it won't work for other people. The secret is in figuring out, how do I connect with people? What type of people do I end up connecting with very quickly? What do I do in those scenarios? What do they do in those scenarios? And how do we start to like build this kind of community component based on connections, instead of just, a lot of time marketing is associated with one directional messaging. I'm going to post this on my website, which is pretty much you shouting into a giant void that this is who I am and what I do. It's fine, but you could also shout for a very long time and nobody could hear you. So you could do that, or you could randomly talk to somebody in the parking lot, or you can randomly talk to your dentist, right? You can randomly talk to a parent on the playground. You can, quite honestly, friends, this is why I am very active on LinkedIn, because I find it very comfortable to network on LinkedIn, to meet people, and I can kind of like see their profile before I even put too much effort into connecting with somebody. I can gauge whether or not I think I'm going to like them or get along with them, because there's something for me to base that on. That's a lot more comfortable for me than, I got invited to this like awards gala for next Saturday, and I'm kind of terrified. I'm not sure. I probably will accept the invitation. Also because it's very late. It goes until like 11 o'clock p.m. and I'm like in bed by 9 kind of person. Which are also things that dictate your experience. I have networking events from 1 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon because that works for me. But there's not a like right or wrong answer in that. Again, it's sourced in like, how do you connect with people? And all of us have connected with people in our lives, even from like childhood friends, high school friends, the type of people you build relationships with in a like co-working environment, the type of people you're attracted to in online engagements, right? There's a pattern that exists in those people. And if we can start to understand what is that pattern, then we can extrapolate that into a strategy that supports connecting with those types of people, which is also not connecting with all types of people. Because no matter how powerful your offer, no matter how powerful the system you've created, it does not serve all people. It is not for all people. It is for specific people who have a specific need, who want to solve their problem in a specific way. And so then the easiest, then we get to step 3, which is communication. Then all we're doing is communicating that. And I'm not trying to convince you that you have a problem. I'm not trying to agitate your problem. I'm not trying to persuade you or manipulate you into buying something that you should want, right? I'm here to show you what I have. If you like what I have, then let's talk about it. If you need a pair of shoes and I sell shoes, then it's kind of rude for me not to show you that I have shoes.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so from like, I see this very often in a coaching and consulting capacity, because people who can, I can help you with employee turnover. I can help you with employee engagement, or I can help you with your onboarding process, or I can help you with a whole bunch of things. I even made a proposal for a potential client the other day, and there's like 9 different things. Right? Like, yes, I can help you with marketing strategy. I can help you with communication development. I can help you with social selling. I can help you with marketing KPIs that matter. I can help you, with a lot of things. Okay? But I don't know. Well, for one, I've never seen anybody who needed help with all of those things. Okay? People have their areas of expertise and they are doing things that make sense. This is about my services in particular, but identifying gaps and then saying like, okay, how do I fill the gap? This is a gap you have. Let's fill that gap. But that is talking to somebody who has already decided they have a gap. Okay? I'm not trying to convince you have a gap. You decided you have a gap. I show you what I think I could do to fill the gap. You like it or you don't like it. Like that, and that's fine, right? If you don't like it, maybe I have some other people I could introduce you to that can help you fill that gap. But it's not, I still do think that a lot of people from this marketing perspective, and I think people feel outside of their comfort zone when they're doing it, persuading somebody to buy something. Like, I just wouldn't do that. If you don't need it, I would never sell you it. That's not who I am. I don't believe in that. So why would I implement a persuasion strategy? I don't know, persuade you. I will show you. I will show you. And if you walk away, I've had at least equal amounts of potential clients walk away than have chosen to work with me, probably more. And that's fine. There's some people I've walked away from because I was like, this is not, the problem that you have is not for me, right? Like, this is what I have. I have shoes. You're looking for a jacket, right? Like, I don't have jackets. I have shoes. And you wearing shoes is not going to fix your need for a jacket. You need a jacket. You need to go and talk to this type of person. Those are the types of people who sell jackets. But then at the same time, I become the helpful person who helped someone understand I don't need shoes. Instead of selling them an extra pair of shoes that they didn't need, I helped them find someone who would help them with a jacket, which feels like something I would do. That sounds like something I would do. And so, again, this isn't about let's all be Tracy, like duplicate exactly what Tracy does, because it won't work for you either. Okay? It's why I have never, ever sold a product that's just like, this is my way and I'll teach you how to do it my way. Okay? No, I can share with you my way. And if my way sounds intriguing to you, or my way sounds like something you would do, then we can try it. But if we try it and it doesn't work, then we try something different until we figure out what works for you. And at the end of the day, from a marketing perspective, I always come back to the fact that you look at these big companies, the Apples and the Coca-Cola and the Disney and Tesla and Virgin and these like big global companies, none of them were built on the same values, the same corporate structure, the same type of advertising. None of them. They all did it their way. That is like the core secret to making a business sustainable, is that you figure out what your way is. And it's almost always based on why the CEO started the business. right? And if you are an entrepreneur, you are the CEO, you started the business. Why did you do that?
Right.
Almost always, if you penetrate that thought, it's because you saw a gap. You saw a
Right.
gap in the market. You're trying to fill the gap. So this is now about finding other people who saw that same gap in the market, but either didn't have the technical know-how or the strategic know-how or the desire to fill the gap. But if you experience the gap, there's other people experiencing the gap. So now connect with people who are experiencing that gap, communicate to them that you fill that gap. At the end of the day, it's simple. There's many things that keep us in the realm of complicating it, which also then, to bring this back to comfort zones, pulls you back into the comfort zone.
Yeah. So getting out of your comfort zone in when things are still going well. And it's having that imagination of what else could there be.
Right. And you make a really great point here, Stanley, in getting outside your comfort zone while things are going well.
Yeah.
Because if you wait until things are going poorly, then you're in that group of people doing layoffs. If you're a company, or you're in that group of people who end up having to go back and get a corporate job or get employment from an entrepreneurship perspective because you waited until it was too late to do anything else. And the thing about this is that this is very interesting to me. It's like when you have money from an organizational perspective, people want to give you money, right? Like they want to invest money in you. When you are a wealthy film actor, people want to give you dresses and jewelry and everything for free. Right? The more money you have, the more things people want to give you. And so that doesn't happen when you're the person who's just like, I need my first client. And the thing is that if you take away these other distracting things and like the red, I kind of wish I had an image for this now, the red zone of the comfort zone, and you say, this is me today, and this is my green zone of the comfort zone because this is where I'm going. If I'm going to try and be a keynote speaker, gotta speak in front of somebody, right? You gotta, right? You're never gonna speak in front of 4,000 people if you don't speak in front of 5, right? So you got to, but see how that makes sense in terms of tracking where I want to go. And something I experienced like quite a long time ago, which is funny because I was a Toastmaster for years. Like I have no desire to speak on a stage in front of thousands of people. I have no desire for that. And the reason for that, not because I don't think my messages have value, but it's because I'm not the answer, folks. I don't want to stand up here when I am on the stage and I am delivering content. I feel like people are sitting in the audience expecting me to be the answer to their problem. And I'm not. I would rather be in the middle of the room, workshopping with people, asking questions, hearing answers, asking more probative questions. That's what I like to do. That is my area of genius. It's not in just speaking. And so again, that doesn't mean that that's not right for everybody. If that's the direction you want to go, then that is awesome. And follow your V. I don't need to go and spend a whole bunch of time outside of my comfort zone in a speaking on stage arena because I have no intention of ever doing that. Plus, I do have enough knowledge of public speaking that I would be fine if I had to do that for some reason. But it doesn't matter for me. So this comes back to what matters to you and like go one step into that arena, but don't let, now I'm thinking of, those like big sumo costumes that you can put on and like sumo wrestle each other. I'm thinking of the Office episode where they do that, but like your job is to push the other person out of the circle. Okay? And so this is another way that you can exit your comfort zone, is for someone to like push you in a direction. And if you don't know what direction you're trying to go, people will push you around in your circle, and they will push you into areas of your comfort zone that you don't actually like. That's the wrong outside of the comfort zone direction to go. And so having that like self-knowledge or business knowledge from the perspective of like, who are we and why are we here and where are we going, allows you to put up a fight, put on your sumo costume and be like, no, I'm going in that direction. And you want to push me in that direction, but no, I have no interest in going in that direction. I'm going in this direction. So yeah, I think in a lot of visuals.
That's awesome though. So in that, okay, so this just came to me while you were talking, and when I was talking about creative and reactive, and then my brain flared up. And the only difference, okay, reactive is placing the C in a different place than creative. It's the same letters. Wherever you place that C gives you the results that you're going to get. So reactive is placing the C in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Being creative is placing the C to begin with. And if you get out of your comfort zone and you become that creative, rather than stay in your comfort zone, be reactive and reacting to the environment that's around us. That's where the changes take place. And when we can control that, when we can be the orchestrators of that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we're given the opportunity every day, is to orchestrate our own symphony, to play our own music, and like I said last week, not to allow our music to die within us. And you know, when you hear people talk and they make comments like, you should be on stage, it's because they're seeing something inside of you and they see an extension of themselves and they want company.
Mm.
Okay, ultimately humanity, in marketing, let's stay focused on that. I want to keep my attention span on that marketing, is that sing our song and why we're singing that song, and going back to that drawing board and getting creative about why we initiated doing what we do. What is it that's within inside of us that is our marketing? So when I'm marketing the way that I pay my bills, because if I don't pay them on time, then I'm marketing my ideas to people that don't know me, and I'm also marketing it to myself. And when I step out of my comfort zone and I pay them before they're due, or by the time that they're due, I'm making that marketing. So what do I want that to look like when I'm presenting myself? What are those elements that I want to communicate and market? But I don't want it to look like everybody else. And I want to be unique and yet still have that connection. So I'll bring this point, is that, a lot of the young people, they present the idea that they want total autonomy. They don't want to conform. But yet,
and I'm with them. Amen.
okay. Now, when we do that though, we want to conform to a degree, but we don't want to not conform to another degree, because we want to have connection. We want
right, and there's a lot of complexity in the human experience, which I think it's important to remember from a marketing perspective, because one,
right,
whoever's doing the marketing is a human. Two, whoever's receiving the marketing is a human. So the human condition is at play here.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. But so when I think about wearing clothes in public, that feels like a very comfortable conformity for me, right?
Uh-huh.
That feels like something I would choose to do. And so I'm super happy to conform in that arena. Now, we've talked about this on the show before, this conformity of moms dropping their kids off at school and looking miserable. I'm not willing to conform to that.
Right.
So I don't.
Right.
And there's an interesting thing here, because when we get into communities of people, really what it is a choosing to conform to something, right? If I'm going to go to a church, I am choosing to agree with this set of beliefs, right? Probably, I mean, I wouldn't go to a church and be like, I don't believe that every time like someone said something, right? You don't choose to go there if you don't choose the beliefs. And so that happens on a societal level. It happens on a familial level when you are choosing spouses and like building your life together. Your like family you're born into, less so because you have no control over that. But this also goes into the like creating with the C at the beginning, right? I decide what I want to create. And I have my little 3-person family unit, and I get asked all the time when I'm having more kids and I'm not. And like, it's like, this is my choice. And I'm not disempowered by those questions anymore because this is what I'm choosing. And I'm happy with what we're creating. And it like feels like me, feels like what I would do. I'm going to have a kid that I want to be able to give my 100% attention to. If I have another one, I can't do that. I will not be able to be the mom I want to be. So I am actively choosing not to do that, which also means I have to go tobogganing when my son wants to go tobogganing because he has no siblings. But so there are pros and cons with all of these decisions. But when you make that choice intentionally, and I do think this is what we're seeing with the Gen X's, is that they are choosing more intentionally than even I, as a millennial, did. I was like, I went to business school because it seemed like a good idea. I went to work in corporate because my dad worked in corporate. Like, seemed like a good way to make money and have like a solid living. And I worked in corporate for 15 years before I realized that this is not aligned with who I am whatsoever. So I could keep doing this, and I'm like smart and accomplished, and I can keep going with that, but it will never feel right for me because it's wrong. And when we choose work environments intentionally like that, when we choose people to hire into our team that are agreeing to our belief system. So let's look at it as this, right? All of us have an individual belief system. Every company has an individual belief system. If we hire people into that who believe in the belief system because we've been brave enough in our marketing to show that to people, we are brave enough to stand against bullying. And if any senior leader in our organization is reported as a bully, they are fired. We have 0 tolerance for bullying. Or we have that sales guy who brings in all the money, but is kind of a bully, but he brings in all the money. Okay, let's be honest. The value is profit, right? Let's be brave enough to say that the value is profit. Because if it's not, then we have to make these decisions. And this might seem like now we're getting into like kind of HR and culture arena, but again, all of this is connected at the end of the day. This is the human experience. So if these are the types of things that are happening in an organization, and we're out there from a marketing perspective being like, we're all about inclusion and like being kind and cares about people, right? And then that is what's happening internally. Then actually what's happening in our marketing is we are lying. We are lying to the market. And then if you can work it back to that why and who we are, then you can say like, would we do that? Would we lie to the market? Or would we make adjustments internally to match what our beliefs are? Will we stand up for our beliefs on a day-to-day basis? And if we can do that from an individual perspective, then it becomes possible to do it from a community or a company perspective. And this is again why I like to look at marketing from the depths of the clarity, connection, and communication, because it's not about tactics at the end of the day. I could be communicating really correct things through a podcast or really incorrect things through a podcast, right? The tactic is not responsible at the end of the day. The AI is not responsible at the end of the day. The humans are responsible at the end of the day. And so if we can tap into the same human principles we talked about in the last episode when it comes to getting outside of our comfort zone, these are the exact same things that are happening in workplaces or in your individual work structure from an entrepreneurial perspective when it comes to your marketing. So it's just an area worth questioning and asking yourself, am I? Am I just staying in my marketing comfort zone? Anytime. So this is actually, it's a great pressure test right now because we're still in this whole like post-COVID going back to work thing. And people are trying to go back to, like, we had this marketing program before COVID. It worked really well before COVID. COVID blew everything up. Now COVID is gone, which is not true. It's now just part of the infrastructure of sickness. So let's go back. We're going to go back to trade shows and all the in-person things that we used to do. Well, the fact was those trade shows didn't work before COVID either. And so now we have a really great opportunity to say, okay, what we're doing, that's firmly within the marketing comfort zone. Well, what might we try? And that also doesn't mean you have to throw away everything you've always done immediately, right? This is not what getting outside of your comfort zone is. Like, I get outside of my comfort zone in different areas, and I keep my bedtime routine with my son because it's like my favorite part of the day. Right? That doesn't have to change. Other things can change. And so sure, keep that because that's the trusty thing right now. But let's try. Let's use 10% of our budget to try something new every quarter, right? Like, what might you learn? This is why companies like Google continue to grow and have new products, because they have budget, they have time, they have employees that are specifically there to ideate, to create new things. And in a lot of work environments, and I will tell you from a lot of the marketing environments that I have worked in, for what is considered a creative industry, there is very little space for innovation and creation. There is space made for colors and graphic design, and it's like we keep creativity in the design arena of marketing. But what happens when we lock that away and say that's our comfort zone? That's where we keep creativity and that design phase. Comfort zones. So it's just worth looking at what things might I be doing from a comfort zone perspective, and what's the value to me of that. And on the flip side, what's the value to being able to go outside of that and explore something new?
So you bring back to light, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've got, always got.
And if you're fine with what you're getting, then fine, right? We're going to have this whole conversation. You're going to be like, Psh, I'm fine with what I'm getting. So I'm fine in my comfort zone. And that it's fine, right? But one, will you always be getting what you're getting? So now have you put yourself in the place where I am going to run into the next COVID, although hopefully not a global pandemic version of that, the next big upset of the global ecosystem, and you're not prepared for that. You have no way to deal with that. So you just become Blockbuster and go out of business. Or do I say, okay, I've got stuff that works. This is great. Let's keep that 90% ticking like a machine. Let's take this 10% and let's explore. How can we make that better? How can we make that more flexible? So if something happens in the future, we have like backup plans. How are we creating leads and opportunities in different places so that if that one runs dry, then we have stuff over here? And they're like, this is all of the building blocks, right? But it would be like saying, and I'm a big fan of Lego, right? When you build Lego, you have the instructions to get to the set. And then you have the set. You're done. Right? You're done with the Lego. But that's not how businesses are built. Right? You're not done. You don't get an instruction manual and then you build it and then you're done. That's not the way that any business who's been in business for 100 years or even 10 years has been built. Right? It is flexible. So you look at that and you're like, you know what, that chimney looks like really unstable. So I'm just gonna like rebuild the chimney, but I'm not actually gonna rebuild the like fireplace, right? The fireplace is fine. Then the chimney is rebuilt and you're like, oh, actually maybe it was the fireplace that wasn't working. So now I'm gonna rebuild them. But I'm not building the entire house every time, but I am like constantly, it's like my mother-in-law in her house now. She's retired, right? And then she's like, okay, now I want all the walls different color. Right?
Right.
And now I want different countertops in the kitchen. Right? And none of these things are happening all at once. They happen in stages, but they happen because they're like, there's a continual desire to improve something. And so even if you're in the stage where like everything is great, I mean, quite honestly, you probably got there because you have that iterative development mindset where like you have to build on these things. But there's, I don't know, personally, I find a lot of discomfort in comfort. There's like too many things that have stayed the same for too long. And you're like, I wonder if that could be better. And I'm not like changing things to change things, but my brain goes into creation mode. What could be possible in that
Right.
arena? Am I like 100% happy with this, or am I like 92% happy with this? Could I get that to 95? Could I get that to 100%? What might I try? And if we have that permission we've given ourselves to stay curious and not to hold ourselves too rigidly accountable to say like, oh my gosh, I've been in my comfort zone for 20 years and now I need to like get out of it. Like, that's fine. You didn't know that, right? You weren't aware of that. Now you're aware of it. So what do you want to do about it? What might it look like to just do that 1% change?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. You know, it is. It's making that 1% change. So it is. So thank you, Tracy. And, you know, the business marketing and getting out of the comfort zone, staying in your lane, not duplicating, you know, as you watch those that didn't do it right, learn from their mistakes. You know, just real quickly, if you look at Coca-Cola, what Coca-Cola tried to do to compete with Pepsi, they changed their entire formula and it almost bankrupted the company.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they got out of their lane and they tried to duplicate somebody else's marketing and it almost cost them their business. And they spent millions upon millions. And, you know, they kept, I think, I didn't drink the stuff, but they kept the Coke One, I think it was what it was called. And then they brought the original back and they kept them on the shelf for a while. I don't even know if Coke One is still, you
I don't
know,
think it's a thing
available.
anymore, but
Yeah. So, you know, but so it's staying in your lane, getting out of your comfort zone and trying. And but here again, know what your purpose is, know what your why is, and then the how comes. So
right. Well, and it's also, this is a great example because in this scenario, you have two products that are very similar. Okay.
yeah,
The idea behind the consumption of those products is the same. Right? So now you're choosing it on a flavor basis. And so, yeah, you can change your flavor to match the other person, except now what you've done is change your flavor because the other person had a better flavor.
right.
So what does that say to the market? That says to the market, those guys, they were the OGs. They were the originals. Yeah. They had the flavor first. You're just a copying.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to say, like, yeah, there are people who have different preferences in terms of taste. Personally, I've never been a huge soda fan in general, but when I did drink pop, I would always have Coke because I thought Pepsi was too sweet. I have a friend who always would drink Pepsi because he thought Coke was too peppery or something, which sounded weird to me. But like, every human has their own taste buds. Yeah. Some people like one thing, some people like another thing. And this is very relevant from a branding perspective, is there will always be people who don't like you. Because if you're Coke and you change to taste more like Pepsi, then the people who liked original Coke won't like you anymore.
Right. Right.
There will always be people who don't like you. I had an interesting conversation recently about some of the new advertising that Apple has been doing. And I'm not an Apple user, so I'm not in the crowd. But he was like, oh, they've always advertised like creativity, innovation, community, right? Like you could feel all of that in their advertising. And now they've switched to like talking about features. And it's really confusing because I don't have an Apple device because I care about the features. Right? Like the features are nice. It has to work as a phone and a camera and all of these things, but that's not why. I choose Apple. I choose Apple because of this experience that I get. And so like now this is confusing. And like, because yeah, what do the other companies, the Google Pixel and the Samsungs talk about the features? Because they don't have that kind of brand that they have built. So they have to talk about the features. And they still, quite honestly, Android still has the percentage of the market, but you'd never know that because of how the experience of people who have Apples exists in our economy. And so these are the things we have to choose. We choose. And yes, you can always copy someone else. Always available. If you feel like you're in panic mode and the safe thing to do is to copy someone else, that is always available to you.
Right.
Now, this is what, again, I've said this so many times because people will come and listen to my presentation. Oh, I just need to be more like you, Tracy. And I say, that is the absolute last thing you need to do. Because if we are in a competition about who can be the most Tracy, I will beat you every time. Right? Now, if I'm in a competition with Stanley to be the most Stanley, I will lose every time because I can't be Stanley. It's not possible.
Right.
Even if I copied every single thing you wrote in a social media post and I duplicated it, I could never be you. I don't have the knowledge that you have. I don't have the desire to learn in the direction that you have. I don't have the experiences that you've had. I can't be you. And so while it might seem easier to copy, it wouldn't be the first time I heard someone say they just copied the SEO keywords from their competitor and optimized for the same words. This is you copying someone else. So what makes you different? What makes you different? And as soon as you know that, as soon as you are really clear on why I am different than any other web design agency, or I am different than any other fintech in the thousands of fintech companies that created every year, when you know that, then you can tell people that. But until then, you think you have to look the same as other people. So let's just go with the authenticity, folks. It is the easiest, fastest path, even though a lot of other marketers will want to convince you otherwise.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
And get outside your comfort zone. Don't just sit in your comfort zone. It's uncomfortable.
Get uncomfortable because you don't know what's waiting just on the other side of that.
Yeah. Something greater, something even better.
Yeah. And you be the navigator of the ship, not allowing somebody else to navigate it for you.
Yeah. Don't let someone push you around. And this is also, I want to take a strong stand on this because if you feel like you are working with a marketing advisor or a marketing agency, or you're following someone on social media that feels like they're pushing you towards a specific thing, like you should be doing this, you have to do this. If you don't do video, then you'll never have a profitable business. If you feel like someone's in a sumo suit pushing you outside of your circle, ask the question, is that the direction in which I'm trying to go to get outside of my comfort zone? Or am I just getting pushed around? Because at the end of the day, we have to stand up for ourselves. You have to stand up for your brand. And there are people out there like me who want to help you see where you're at and then help go with you in a direction. But there's a lot of people who have been convinced for a very long time that they're supposed to push you outside of your comfort zone in the direction that they choose, not the direction that you choose. So you choose.
So if somebody wants to know more about you and what you do in the marketing, how could they get a hold of you?
LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. So connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request, say that you saw me here in this conversation, and let's have a conversation. I am a fan of knowing people, not just being connected via social media. So connect and let's chat.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Stanley.
So thank you all for being here with us today. And there was a lot of takeaways that you could walk away with and implement. And my recommendation is a conversation is free, but it could be the most best investment. And that's not really proper English, the most best, but I'm going to use it.
We're not here giving grammar lessons.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not Grammarly, but it could be the best investment that you could discover. So Take the chance, step out of your comfort zone, challenge your own marketing ideas, allow somebody else to challenge them, to take you to the level that you see yourself, and don't settle for less than who you were designed to be, and live a life without limits. Have a great day.